Hello YouTube, in this video I'm going to be talking about 5 things that you should know before PCSing to South Korea. Actually, it's probably going to be more than 5 things, but stay tuned. What is up YouTube? How you doing? Welcome to the channel, Half Right Face Productions. If you're new to the channel, go ahead, subscribe, smash the bell for notifications, leave some comments down below. It's always cool to read your guys' feedback. So I'm a U.S. soldier stationed at Camp Humphreys in South Korea. I'm command sponsor, so I came with my wife and 5 kids. We've been here for a year and a half, and since we've been here, there's quite a few things that we've learned that I thought it would be pretty cool if I put it in a video so it could be useful for somebody else that's on their way to South Korea. Because when we came here, we've never been to Korea before, and so a lot of these things were either it was a culture shock or like, hey, I didn't know that, one of those things. So first off, I want to talk about the apps that were extremely helpful while we've been here. So there are 2 apps for navigation. There's Waze, and then there's Naver. And all these apps are free. You can just download them. So there's Waze and Naver for navigation, and then there's an air pollution app, because air pollution is a big deal in South Korea. It happens a lot. And then for texting back and forth and having group chats and all that, there's Kakao. If your spouse is a service member, and as soon as he gets to Korea or before he gets here, his sponsor is probably going to tell him to download Kakao, because that's kind of what we use over here. And then last is it's not actually an app, it's more of a link. I'll put the link in the description box below. But one of the cool things about Camp Humphreys is, and I'm pretty sure all the other camps do this too, but Camp Humphreys, all of the fast food places, they all deliver. I'm talking Pizza Hut, Popeyes, Burger King, Subway, Arby's, Taco Bell, the Chinese food restaurant place that's in the food court, they all deliver. And this is extremely helpful in case you happen to get sick and you quarantine yourself, or as soon as you get here to South Korea as a new arrival, you're gonna have to quarantine for 10 days, and then that's just how you can order food. I'll put that I'll put that down below so you can check it out. So man, if I could talk about a couple things in regarding South Korea to somebody who's on their way over here, what would I talk about? That's kind of what I asked myself when I was thinking about this video. So the first thing that I'll talk about is money. So the currency in South Korea is won. I have a couple of won right here, and then I'll put the exchange rate somewhere in here. This is kind of like $1. This is equal to like $5. And then if you've seen Squid Game, this is what fell into the big ball above. This is 50,000 won. I think it's roughly like $46 or something. I may be off, maybe off a couple dollars. But the currency here is won, and there's a couple of things about it. So while you're on any of the camps, Camp Humphreys, Camp Casey, Camp Walker, Youngsung, K-16, right? Everything that's on the camp as far as business, your gas station, your shop at, your PX, your food court, alterations, they all deal in US dollars. They won't take won. However, all of the camps have a KSB, which is a Katusa snack bar, which is awesome, by the way. They will deal in both. They will deal in won and US dollars. Now, as soon as you leave the gate and go outside into, South Korea, everything is strictly won. They won't take dollars. So while you're on the military base, it's all US dollars. and then off the base it's all won. And if you do have some merchants that are on a base and like, you know, they'll it really gets confusing when it really gets confusing for the merchant if you try and buy something from them and you give them dollars, but then you don't have enough, and then you start adding won. It just gets confusing for them. So I think it's one of the reasons, plus probably AFI's policy with that they just take US dollars. And then, oh, one other thing too, we didn't know this. For some reason, you know, all the PCS'n gas stations, they don't take pennies, but they would deal in all the other coinage that's available. So what else about won can I talk about? Oh, if you are here with your family and you got a car, right, and you leave your base and you drive outside your base, you must always take won. Always. Why? Because there are toll booths everywhere in South Korea, and they'll just come up out of nowhere. But if you use the Waze or the Naver app, it'll tell you if there's a toll booth that's approaching. But there's toll booths like it's mainly on the highways. They're all on the highways. And then as you come off and exit, and they only do in won, no dollars, no debit, just won. So that's very important because, you know, you're gonna want to get out and go explore and see South Korea. Okay, so next thing that I'm going to talk about. So you and your family or you yourself are coming to, you're on orders to South Korea, and this is a real big headache, especially when you have a family of 5 or 5 kids. But the commissary here is outrageously expensive. It's expensive, right? And I don't know if it's because of COVID or because a lot of these products are coming from America and they have to like make it more expensive because of shipping and all that. But the commissary is expensive. I'm gonna try and find some pictures and put them in here somewhere so you can look at it. But yeah, it's bad. So when it comes to fruits and produce, right, fruits and vegetables, we shop in the local Korean supermarket because they're cheap, and in my opinion the quality is also better. One of the things in South Korea that I notice is the farmers don't really use really hard pesticides for their crops, and like with their livestock, they don't use hormones. And you'll notice it like when you buy chickens. The chickens they're not filled with hormones. The chickens are small. But everything that we buy, it's primarily in the supermarket. There's a supermarket that's right off Camp Humphreys that's called N-Mart. I don't know if I can drop a pin for that for anybody, but it's awesome, super cheap, great quality fruits and vegetables. Everything else that you need, like cereal, they always have pumpkin spice Pop-Tarts, right? And then chips, you know, yogurt, milk. You kind of get that from the commissary. And the commissary, and I'm pretty sure because of COVID, it is like it's hard to keep stock. Like right now in the commissary, there's zero milk. There is zero milk. There's no milk in there at all. They'll often run out of like cheese. Bread is like you could throw it across the room and knock somebody out. I just buy bread from the Korean market. But yeah, the commissary is expensive, right? All right. So next thing I'm going to talk about, and I really hope that YouTube doesn't like bar my video because of the weird algorithms and all that, but it's because of COVID, right? COVID in Korea is something totally different than what's going on in the States. So while you're here in Korea, think of it as you're an ambassador. you're an ambassador, you're a visitor, and you are following the COVID guidelines that is put out by the Korean government. The Korean government puts these guidelines out, and then it's assimilated from the U.S. Army, and it gets put out to all the units, right? And their restrictions are a lot more, I would say, tougher than what's going on in the States. Like right now, the States are trying to take off masks and all that. That's not happening in Korea. Sometimes there's areas that will be red and soldiers can't travel there. Sometimes restaurants will just pick up only, no dine in. It's all about how many infected people there are in Korea that drives all that. But because of COVID, it's really made this assignment not that cool, not that desirable, because me and my wife, we wanted to come here and travel just like everybody else, but then there was a wild card that was placed on the table, and it was COVID, and we can't do that. We just can't go to a lot of places. And then they're also really big on the vaccine, so some restaurants will, I don't know. I don't even want to talk about it. COVID sucks. Next thing I'm going to talk about is the Korean people in general, right? So one of the things that I've learned from the Korean people is that they're very friendly, and for the most part, they're not very outspoken, and they'll follow like they tend to follow the rules. And another thing that I noticed that is super awkward, right? That if you have a small baby and you're out in public, like there would be a random Korean person, whether it's a man or a woman, that will come up and they'll want to hold your baby, or they'll want to like push the baby carriage for you. We actually me and my wife, we got into an argument with a guy out in public because he wanted to hold the baby, and like, well, one thing, COVID's going on, another, we don't even know you, so you better back off. You better back off. Yeah, but it's a cultural thing for them. Yeah, it was super awkward. All right, so next thing I'm gonna talk about is, and this is something that was probably my own fault, but when I came to Korea, I thought that, Korea's kind of a foreign country. There's gonna be a lot of stuff that's gonna be super cheap. Yeah, that's not true. Not in South Korea. Korea is not cheap. Korea is, in some ways, it's expensive. What's really expensive is toys. For some reason, toys is extremely expensive in South Korea. But yeah, I thought it would be cheap. The only thing that's cheap is like Korean food. Like if you go to a restaurant, like that's kind of what's really cheap. But if you're trying to buy anything else, it's kind of expensive. Yeah, that threw me off when I got here. That'll be it for this video. I talked about quite a few things. But anyway, before I leave, I just want to say, for all the service members that are coming to Korea, you're only here for 1 year or 2 years, right? And you're here, think of it as an ambassador. You represent the American people. So while you're here, stay out of trouble and don't bust zeros. Do not bust zeros, right? Because if you do, it's going to make things a lot more complicated when you're, trying to get out of Korea. But anyway, I'll see you guys later. Bye.